Right now, he's just not a very good player at all. He's not seeing it. He gets stuck in the pocket. The ball's not coming out. He's a difficult watch right now. And, they said he's going to start this week.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It never is, but especially not on a teaching tutorial Thursday. That means the civilian GOAT, greatest of all time, Greg Cosell from NFL Films University, is in the house. We've got week 1 film to break down with Greg. We've got week 2 matchups to preview with Greg. One of our favorite times of the week. It is awesome. Speaking of awesome, love those of you that spread the word via social media, right? I'll announce a winner on tomorrow's show. It's either at Ross Tucker NFL or really, especially at Ross Tucker Pod. You reply to any at Ross Tucker Pod post, whether it's TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. We are looking, and you will get a signed press pass, maybe even from tonight's game if you want it, Bills, Dolphins. I'll send you a signed press pass in the mail, or a card or a picture if you prefer, just for engaging with any of our posts at Ross Tucker Pod on social media. Sponsor confirmation email winner, that's someone that takes advantage of any of our glorious sponsors like Future Fans, like West Shore. Huge fan of all of our sponsors. Love when you guys send me an email, ross@rosstucker.com. You're a winner too. And then the YouTube shout out, youtube.com/RossTuckerNFL. Speaking of shout outs, I like to shout out some of our new patrons every day. Patreon.com/RTmedia. Become a Tuckheads member so you get that even money spreadsheet with all of our bets. How about David Asaki, Brett Busick, Eric Fellows? Welcome to the family, fellas. Patreon.com/RTmedia. Greg Cosell is coming up. And tonight, when you're watching the Bills and the Dolphins, drink some Labatt Blue Lights with your friends. Live life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Okay, Greg, before we get into some of these matchups this week, I just wanted to get your thoughts overall on week 1 and what, if anything, jumped out to you. I know we had Sam Munson yesterday on the show, and he's talked about offensive production and, points and yards being way down even just from last year. And I'm curious, what you see. Is it our defenses doing something to get an edge? Is it there's more rookie quarterbacks? Is it no preseason? Is it that offensive tackles have to be up on the line of scrimmage because they're calling illegal formations tighter?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of, it's never one thing, I guess, Greg. It's probably a lot of things it could be. I'm just curious what sort of jumped out to you from week 1 in the NFL.
Well, I think that all those things factor in. The fact that a lot of players don't play in the preseason. You need to play in games, as you know, Ross, to really get a feel for games. Everything gets faster in the regular season. You know how it is as a player. Preseason is relatively slow. Regular season speeds up. Playoffs get even faster. If you're fortunate enough to get to a Super Bowl, that's really fast. So, I think it's just a case where this is sort of the opening bell for a lot of players who don't get many snaps in the preseason. And, offensive execution, I think defenses are a little bit ahead of offenses, particularly when you're talking about O-line as well, because O-line is all about cohesion. It's not just individual players making individual plays or executing individual blocks. Obviously, that does happen, but you talk to O-linemen. I mean, you're an O-lineman, but I go to the O-line masterminds, I talk to a ton of O-linemen, and I learn, and it's all about cohesion and working with the guys next to you. And I think that takes time, and that just doesn't happen overnight. And particularly when you see the multiplicity of fronts now that you see on the defensive side of the ball, you see a lot of 6-man fronts, 7-man fronts, and now you've got to figure to pass protect. And it's not only on the O-line, it's how the quarterback decides to call the protection, if the quarterback is so doing that. So there's a lot going on here, I think, that makes offensive execution take a little more time.
Let's dive into these games, Greg, because there's nothing more fun. This is what's cool about this time of year. I'm going to ask you about some of the biggest games this weekend, or at least the games I'm most intrigued by.
Well, you got a good one yourself, Ross.
Yeah, tonight it'll be the Bills-Dolphins. And what's cool is, Greg, you can kind of talk about what you saw last week, or if anything jumped out to you last week, while previewing the game. So tonight, I'm in Fort Lauderdale, Florida right now because I'll be on the radio call, National Westwood One. By the way, just programming note, I love two programming notes. Number one, you can stream all of our audio games now for Westwood One. So if you guys ever want to listen to your boy, being me, call the game, you can stream it. Just check your listings or westwoodonesports.com, I believe. And then the other thing, NFL.com, NFL Plus or whatever it's called. And then the other thing is, the Dolphins won't have Mostert tonight. The Bills don't have Taron Johnson. So let's dive into this one, Greg, with the Bills and the Dolphins. Big Thursday night AFC East matchup.
Yeah, let's just start with the Bills' offense. I thought what they did from a personnel standpoint was interesting, maybe not surprising to me, but I think it might be surprising to some. They last week against the Cardinals in their opener had 22 snaps of 11 personnel, meaning 3 wide receivers. They had 22 snaps of 12 personnel where they had 2 tight ends on the field. They played 9 snaps with 6 offensive linemen. So this is not an offense where you think, oh, let's just spread it out and let Josh be Josh. And their run game, I think, is something that they're very much focused on. A lot of motion that they use, which started last year when Joe Brady became the OC. They're continuing to do that. They use it both in the run game and in the pass game. And I think as the season progresses, because you sort of see things week one, Ross, that in my mind, I say, well, I think you're going to see more of that. I think one thing you'll see more of, it may not be tonight, it's a short week, but I think you're going to see Curtis Samuel kind of featured as really the movable chess piece in their offense. I think that will be the case as the season progresses. On the other side of the ball, watching the Dolphins offense last week, and I don't think the Bills will do this, but I thought Jacksonville had a phenomenal game plan. Where is the Bills' pass game? The Dolphins' pass game? What is it? It works between the numbers. It's all timing and rhythm, with Tua being a great window thrower between the numbers. So what did they do? They played a lot of man coverage, and they played a lot of robber and lurk coverage, so that there was a defender sitting in the middle, really making it difficult for Tua to define those kinds of throws. And obviously when you play man, you don't have windows the way you have versus zone. So, yes, they hit the big play to Hill, which was a great play by Tua, and he did have some really good throws in that game. But it did not really look like the Dolphins offense that we're used to seeing, because the Jaguars didn't allow them to quite play that way.
This is why you're the best, Greg, because that is so awesome to hear that breakdown of exactly what Jacksonville did to Miami. The other thing is, Greg, that the Dolphins didn't run it very well at all. Not at all.
Not.
I mean, they really had trouble blocking him.
And I guess A-Chain is a game time, so it could be Jalen Wright and Jeff Wilson. And Wright is the rookie from Tennessee, whose tape I really liked. He is an explosive back. No surprise there. It seems like Mike McDaniel just likes to get the fastest guys on his roster, but Jalen Wright can run.
So it is interesting, by the way, how much they used Achane in the passing game.
Yes.
He had 7 catches.
They want him in space. That's the key with him, because he's such an explosive player. I mean, there was a third, it might have been the first possession, a 3rd and 14 or 15, where they just threw out kind of a tunnel screen or bubble screen to him, and they couldn't tackle him. I think he ran for 39 yards.
It's unbelievable how many tunnel screens they threw. I mean,
I know, isn't it? They just want their guys in space. They're so fast.
It's so crazy how many tunnel screens. I mean, that's about as many tunnel screens. It looked like, college. I mean, it's as many tunnel screens as I've seen in a long, long time. All right, let's get to, speaking of explosive, what has gotten into this Saints offense and what's gotten into the Cowboys? I mean, both of them coming off of very, very impressive performances. They go against each other on Sunday, Greg. Saints, Cowboys. What are you looking for here?
Well, let's focus on the Cowboys' offense. I thought their offense made some plays. The Browns were a really good defense. I think if people see the score of that game, Ross, they're going to think, wow, the Cowboys just killed them and their offense was great. The tape didn't really show that. The Browns have a very limited offense right now. We'll get into that, I'm sure, another time. But the Cowboys did not run the ball very well. I think that'll be a problem all year. The Browns defense actually played pretty well. The Browns had the best third down defense in the NFL a year ago by a meaningful margin. And again, the Cowboys were only 4 for 14 on third down in this game. Prescott had the great throw where it was cover zero in the high red zone. The touchdown he threw to Cooks. I mean, that was just a great play by Prescott. If you see the tape, he threw that ball so early. He read it and he knew immediately where to go. And obviously when you play the Browns, they spent a lot of time chipping Garrett, and they really helped both tackles in that game. The rookie Guyton playing left tackle and Steele playing right tackle. When you play the Saints, Dennis Allen gives you a lot to deal with. A lot of different front looks, a lot of different movement post-snap. So they're a difficult defense to play against.
Greg, I want to ask you, since you mentioned it, what did you see from the Browns offense? Why are they so limited?
Well, right now, and who knows about the future with Deshaun Watson, obviously there's a lot of personal stuff going on, which, we don't deal with. But right now, he's just not a very good player at all. He's not seeing it. He gets stuck in the pocket. The ball's not coming out. He's a difficult watch right now. And, they said he's going to start this week. They're in a very interesting situation because they have a really good defense. They've got good skill players, although I know Njoku's going to be out for a little bit, I guess, with an ankle injury. But they've got good skill players. Nick Chubb's coming back week 5. He's a top 3 runner in the league. They've got a good O-line. And the other thing is they've got a backup quarterback who's had success in this league. It's Jameis Winston. So if this continues, they're going to have a decision to make, because right now Deshaun Watson is not playing quarterback at an NFL starting level.
Greg, I should have mentioned earlier, is presented by Smirnoff, the world's #1 vodka. Please drink responsibly. All right, there's some other games that might, like the Jets and the Titans, okay? Neither one of them won last week, Greg, but I really want to hear what you saw from both Levis and Aaron Rodgers. I'm like dying to hear what you saw from these guys. So it's not always going to be the best matchup. Sometimes it just is like things I want to hear what you saw. How about Levis and Aaron Rodgers, if you got a chance to watch both?
Oh, yeah, I've seen both those guys. Let's start with Aaron Rodgers, because I know a lot of people always want to talk about him. And look, this guy, to me, may be the best thrower of football we've ever seen in the history of the league, and he can still do that. I think that it was evident watching the tape. This is not necessarily an X and O point, Ross, but I thought that he had some physical and mental rust, which is going to go away. So we can't use week 1 as a barometer for the whole season. Don't forget he missed an entire season with a serious injury. And other than Alan Lazard, he's not really played with these receivers in regular season games. So I think that'll take a little time, because Rodgers is such a master at seeing what the defense is doing. I mean, I've had conversations with coaches who've coached him who say that he sees more things on the field than anybody they've ever seen, and they're blown away by how much he sees. So that means his receivers have to get on the same page, and that'll take a little time. Now, Garrett Wilson is a terrific player, and he'll be the movable chess piece in their offense. He lined up in multiple locations within the formation. He was deployed as the motion receiver. He is a really, really good player. When Mike Williams can come back and play and be a factor, I think he gives them that big boundary X receiver that has vertical ability. So this offense will get better. They played against a really, really good front 6 in the Niners. The Niners have as good a front 6 as there is in the league, and the Jets really struggle to run the football. I imagine they will be pretty good at it as the season progresses.
Let's get to the what about Levis? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Levis, I mean, obviously he made that really bonehead play. I mean, there was no upside to that play, even if it was complete. It was, it would have been a 2 yard gain, so there was no upside. Those are the kinds of things he has to learn. I think that you see flashes with Levis. But the issue for him is he misses, in this game he did, and I think he does have a tendency to do this, even going back to last year and in his college days, to miss a few too many routine throws. And that's going to have to be cleaned up for him to become a quality NFL starter. But there's no question you see flashes of him making big-time NFL throws because the arm is powerful. Now, just having a powerful arm does not make for great NFL quarterback play, and I think a lot of the nuance and detail of the position is what he has to continue to work on. I will say they ran the ball really, really well in the first half against the Bears. The Bears stopped them more in the second half, but I think that run game is going to be interesting to watch as it develops further.
What about, I guess, the marquee game of the day, Bengals Chiefs? I guess I'm in particular interested in what you saw from the Bengals offense, Greg. They scored 10 points against the Patriots at home? What happened?
Yeah, I think that they're a classic case of what we spoke about to start, where, Burrow doesn't play in the preseason. T. Higgins is out. Chase has no offseason whatsoever. I don't want to say they weren't ready to play. I would never say that. But, the Patriots, they did a lot of things defensively, the Patriots. A lot of disguise, a lot of late coverage rotation. It was really, really effective. They played a ton of cover two, but they never just lined up and said, here's cover two. They got to it in so many different ways with different use of personnel. And Burrow clearly just was throwing the ball short. I mean, they didn't really have any intermediate or vertical pass game at all. I think that'll change. Now, I don't know if that'll change against the Chiefs this week, but we know that the Bengals tend to have a slow start. Burrow's been injured throughout his career. He doesn't play in preseason games, so you would expect them to be better, but this was a game where they just could not get into any kind of rhythmic flow with the pass game whatsoever, which quite frankly was not surprising to me.
Let's talk about the Bears and the Texans on Sunday night. I think a lot of people probably want to hear what you saw from Caleb Williams in his debut, Greg.
Yeah, Caleb Williams is going to be an interesting player to watch this season because he's incredibly gifted physically. You watch him throw a football, boy, does it come out so easily. He's just really gifted. But as far as playing the position, there's much to learn. People have to remember one thing. In his 2 years playing at USC, Ross, he was sacked over 80 times. I watched all those games when he was in college, those last 2 years, or I watched 85% of them. And many of those sacks are on him. He does not have a really good feel for working the pocket. He moves unnecessarily. He tends to climb the pocket when there's no need to. So what he does is he creates his own pressure. He gets himself too close to the bodies. And therefore, he ends up feeling like, I've got to either throw the ball quickly or I've got to leave the pocket. So he needs work in those areas. But he's really gifted as a thrower of the football. This was a game, and again, none of this is a surprise. It's week one for a rookie quarterback where it was extremely evident that he was just executing the play call. He would drop back and he was going to throw it to the primary. It was almost, I got the sense, and I'm not in his brain, but I got the sense that he was going to throw it to that primary no matter what the coverage was. This was the call, I'm throwing it. The Texans, on the other hand, I tell you what, two things really were impressive. We know about Stroud. I thought Joe Mixon looked really spry, and they gave him the ball 30 times. It was predominant zone runs. They predominantly worked to the left side of their offensive line. Makes sense. That's where Laramie Tunsil is. But his cutback ability in this game, he saw things really clearly. Ross is an O-lineman, that in the zone run game, backs are taught to read certain things for their first 2-3 steps, and then they react. And he just saw it really clearly. And the other thing, their defense, they've moved people around and how they're deploying them from a year ago. And this is going to be a defense to watch as the season progresses. Everybody's going to focus on Stroud, rightfully so. But, DeMeco Ryans with that defense, that's going to be a defense to keep an eye on.
It's interesting, Greg, because a lot of people are watching the tape and breaking down the tape of Kirk Cousins. Monday night, it's the Falcons at the Eagles, and I know Chase Daniel and others are showing that Cousins' stance is different. He's throwing the ball different and wondering, how he really feels coming off this Achilles. What did you see from Atlanta and Philly?
Well, I would say this about Cousins. Number one, he only took one snap under center. He was in the shotgun the whole game, and he's not that kind of quarterback. He's a rhythmic under center player, and he has been throughout his career. My guess is that's due to the injury, and they're trying to ease him back into, being Kirk Cousins. The other thing I thought, and I'm sure this is what Chase Daniel is referring to as well, I saw the same thing. I thought he looked a little stiff-legged without needed knee bend, Again, that is more than likely a function of the injury. An Achilles, it was an Achilles, right? Didn't he tear his Achilles?
Yes.
Yeah. That's not a minor injury, Ross. I know that the, technology and the medicine is way better today than, let's say, when Dan Marino tore his Achilles years and years ago and you could see him limping when he came back. I know everything's better than it was back in those days, but, he just was a little stiff-legged. And, I thought, I think that was pretty evident to, obviously to Chase Daniel. I know others felt the same way, that we would all respect quarterback guys. So, again, we're going to see, how that goes as the season progresses. Look, they drafted Michael Penix. They obviously were with Kirk Cousins every day. They may know something. Obviously they got ripped by people when they took Michael Penix, but, they know more than the people who are, just sitting at home, writing about it.
Check him out on social media. He's the man. Love talking with Greg Cosell each and every week here on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. NFL Matchup Show is where you can find him on TV. Greg, you're the man. Thank you so much for the time, as always.
Thanks, Ross. Appreciate it.
Gosh, he's so good. I wish I could get into every game with Greg. I have so many notes for social media for you to post, Jack, at Ross Tucker Pod. Gonna be epic. I learned something from him every week, just like your children or your nieces or nephews or grandchildren, they can learn about football. Just like you learned from Greg, let your children or grandchildren or whoever, especially if their ages like between 4 to 8, 3 to 9, something like that, let them learn football just like you do every week with Greg. It's futurefans.com. I keep getting emails from you guys, DMs from you guys that are using the code Ross to unlock a lifetime of memories with a kid in your life starting now. I'm not familiar with a better way to get a young kid to understand football. No matter how hard, even with me, with my daughters, it wasn't easy to explain the downs and stuff. The storybook-led activity box that they like doing, they want to do. Futurefans.com, code Ross. It's incredible. And once you do that, you'll be able to just chillax during the games. Maybe you're going to enjoy a little Smirnoff for crafting delicious cocktails. Official vodka partner of the NFL, world's #1 vodka. Just grab a bottle of Smirnoff at your local retailer and head to Smirnoff.com to find recipes of delicious cocktails perfect for game day. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff #21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Please do not share with anyone under legal drinking age.
Tuck's Takes.
All right, Ross, you are in Miami for a big game in the AFC East tonight between the Miami Dolphins, who are hosting the Buffalo Bills. Who do you think is going to win this one and why?
Going back and forth on this one. I really am. If the Dolphins were ever going to beat the Bills, this is the game to do it. They're at home, short week. The Bills don't have, I guess you could argue, maybe their best defensive player, one of them in Taron Johnson, who might be the best nickelback in the league. Feels like the time is now for the Dolphins, although they've got some injuries of their own. But Josh Allen and the Bills have their number. And ultimately, and I know Tua's got some come-from-behind wins, I think it's a close game late. And in a close game late, I'm taking Josh Allen in particular because of his legs. He has that ability to find a way to make a play with his legs late in the game. I think it's 27-26. The Bills win.
All right, we got some players that are going on IR, ruling them out for at least 4 games. That includes Broncos running back Aldrick Esteem, Cardinals offensive tackle Jonah Williams, and Rams offensive tackle Joe Noteboom, who joins teammates Puka Nacua and offensive guard Steven Avila. The Jets, they signed lineman Connor McGovern, while the Rams, they signed Dylan McMahon off the Eagles practice squad.
Should have mentioned this, that my Thursday night football pick is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Yeah, I mean, the thing is with IR now, you don't really know how long these guys are going to be out. It used to be, Jack, back in the day, you go on IR, you're done for the season. Now, some of these guys might come back. We don't know. It sounds like all these Rams guys can come back this year. I'm not sure about Jonah Williams. Connor McGovern's been with the Jets forever. It's the other Connor McGovern. And, yeah, that's, the Eagles lose Dylan McMahon, who I thought played pretty well in the preseason. Other than that, I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. I know a lot of people are getting married this time of year. That means a lot of anniversaries. If you know of a better anniversary gift than myfrontpagestory.com, let me know, because I would absolutely love to hear it. myfrontpagestory.com. Love all of our, I think we're done here, members of patreon.com. Pizza Boy Brewing, that was awesome Monday night. Sporticulture, humanheadnyc.com. Backofficescheduler.com.